everyone. Welcome to our last lesson of the year 10.6b. We're still solving quadratic equations by the quadratic formula today. So the first thing we got to do is get this into quadratic form. So I need to subtract my 2h to get it to the other side. And I have to add 1 to get that to the other side. So these are going to equal 0. If I do negative 9h minus 2h, I'm going to get negative 11h squared. Oh, hold on, I can't do that because one has the squared and one does not. So it becomes negative 9h squared minus 2h. Now 10 plus 1 is 11, so plus 11 equals 0. My a here is going to be negative 9. My b is going to be negative 2, and my c is going to be 11. So if we put that into our quadratic formula, x equals negative b, which is a negative 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is negative 2 squared, minus 4a, which is negative 9, times c, which is 11, all over 2a, which is 2 times negative 9. So what we're going to get is positive 2 plus or minus the square root of 4. Now negative 4 times negative 9 is 36. 36 times 11 gives us 396. So this is going to be a plus 396 all over negative 18. So what we'll get is 2 plus or minus the square root of 400 divided by negative 18. Now the square root of 400 is 20, so we'll have 2 plus 20 divided by negative 18, and 2 minus 20 divided by negative 18. 2 minus 20 is negative 18. Negative 18 divided by negative 18 is 1. But 2 plus 20 is 22 divided by negative 18 is going to give us a negative 1.2. So our two answers are negative 1.2 and 1. Next one asks us, what are the solutions of 3x squared plus 5x equals 8? Well, this time I'm going to have to subtract 8 to get that over. So I have 3x squared plus 5x minus 8 equals 0. My a is going to be 3, my b is going to be 5, and my c is going to be a negative 8. So negative b this time is going to be a negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 8 divided by 2a, which is 3. 2 times 3. So we'll have negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25. Now, negative 4 times negative 8, that is 32. 32 times 3 is going to be 96 divided by 6. So we get negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 plus 96, 121, all over 6. The square root of 121 is 11, so negative 5 plus or minus 11 over 6. So we're going to get negative 5 plus 11 over 6, and negative 5 minus 11 over 6. Negative 5 plus 11, well, that's 6. Divided by 6 is going to give me 1. So I know for sure that it can't be A or B, because one of my answers is 1. Those have negative 1. Then negative 5 divided by, or negative 5 minus 11 gives me negative 16 divided by 6, which is going to simplify to negative 8 over 3. So I can get rid of D, and C is my answer in this case. Next one, it says, for the period 1971 to 2001, the number y of films produced in the world can be modeled by the function y equals 10x squared minus 94x plus 3,900, where x is the number of years since 1971. In what year were 4,200 films produced? So I know that the number of films produced is our y. What they wanted to know is when is 4,200 films produced. So what I'm going to put is 4,200 equals 10x squared minus 94x plus 3,900. So it's in quadratic form almost. What we need is a 0, so we need to have equal 0. So what I'm going to do is subtract 4,200 from 3,900. So that equals 0. And then we get 10x squared minus 94x minus 300. Now we can put this in the quadratic form and solve it. Or quadratic formula and solve it, sorry. So it becomes a negative 94 plus or minus negative 94 squared minus 4 times 10 times negative 300 all over 2 times 10. So we'll have a positive 94 plus or minus, now 94 squared is going to give me 8,836. 4 times 10 is going to give me 40 times 300. Now I have two negatives in there, so it's going to be a positive 12,000 all over 2 times 10, which is 20. So 94 plus or minus 12,000 plus 8,836. So it could be the square root of 20,836 all over 20. So the square root of 20,836 is, I'm going to put that in my calculator, 144.35. So I'm going to have 94 plus 144.35 over 20. Now because I'm running out of room, I'm going to put 94 minus 144.35 over 20 up here. So if I solve these problems, I'm going to do 94 minus 144.35 divided by 20 gives me a negative 2.5. If I do this one, 94 plus 144.35, divide that by 20, we get 11.9. Now, I know that we're looking for what year were 4,200 films produced. Well, I can't have negative years, so I know that I can't have negative 2.5. That's what's called extraneous. So it's an extraneous solution. I know 11.9 must be our answer. So it's years since 1971. So I'm basically going to add 12 to that. It's going to be about 1983. Almost 1983. Alright, last problem. It says use the given area of the rectangle to find the value of x, then give the dimensions of the rectangle. Okay, well, a rectangle I know has an area of length times width. So this one I know has 4x plus 3 times 4x minus 5. That equals the area that we know, which is 209. So this isn't in quadratic form, but we can get it in quadratic form. We just have to multiply the 4x plus 3 and the 4x minus 5. So I'm going to draw my 2 by 2 box so I can multiply these. 4x minus 5 and 4x plus 3. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4x times negative 5 is negative 20x. 4x times 3 gives me 12x. And 3 times negative 5 gives me a negative 15. Now I can add these two x's together because they are like terms. So I'm going to get 16x squared minus 8x minus 15 equals 209. So this is almost in quadratic form. What I just need to do is subtract this 209 to bring it over. So we get 16x squared minus 8x, negative 15 minus 209 is going to give me a negative 224 equals 0. Now I can put this in my quadratic form. So I'll have a negative 8 plus or minus the square root of that negative 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 16, and c, which is negative 224, all over 2 times 16. So we get 8 plus or minus the square root of 64. This is going to be plus because I see 2 negatives. 4 times 16 times 224 gives me 14,336 divided by 32. Now the square root of 14,400 over 32. So if I do the square root of that number, I get 8 plus or minus 120 over 32. So I'll have 8 plus 120 divided by 32, and 8 minus 120 divided by 32. That's 128 divided by, so 8 plus 120 is 128. 128 divided by 32 gives me 4. 8 minus 120 divided by 32 gives me a negative 3.5. So these are our lengths. I know that I cannot have a negative length, so I know that negative 3.5 is not our answer. So I'm going to put 4 back into these problems. 4 times 4 is going to be 16 plus 3. We have 19 on this side. 4 times 4 is 16 minus 5 gives me 11 on this side. So 19 and 11.